Hey everyone. So I want to do a video today about something that's been on my mind, and a lot of people might call this mindset body dysmorphia, and I don't know that I would necessarily use the term body dysmorphia, but when I was bigger, I was aware that I was a chunky person. Don't get me wrong, I didn't think that I was thin, but I was not aware of my actual size, if that makes any type of sense. Not until I got really up, like close to, like, my high weight of 242, then I started to really get it. But between like 215 and 230-ish, which is where I kind of bounced between for at least 10 years, I didn't really, it didn't click in my head that I was actually as big as I was. The I looked in the mirror every morning, to make sure that my clothing looked, nice on my body, and that, like my bra, you couldn't see it through my shirt, and, I would check, make sure that extra chub rolls weren't showing because the clothings were too tight or whatever. I mean, I owned a mirror. I knew what I looked like, but what I was seeing is not what other people were seeing, and I get it now, sort of. It's like I get it sometimes. I was looking back at some pictures from actually this past summer. Me and the kids went to King's Dominion, which is a big theme park in Virginia. And, we had taken a bunch of pictures, and I'm usually the one taking the pictures, so I'm usually not the one in the pictures. But I had taken a picture back to back with my daughter, and when I looked at the picture, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, that's not bad angle. I mean, I was in denial, but I wasn't in denial, if that makes any sense. It was a slap in the face. It was like, oh Jesus, that's me. Now, I had already been on my gastric bypass journey, but in my head, I was obese, but, the main reason that I was getting this done was because I had really high blood pressure that was not always controlled by medication, and I have severe sleep apnea, which I hate my CPAP machine. So, like, the weight was third in line for the reason to get it done. It was a factor, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It's been on my mind. Like, I'm looking back, I'm allowing myself to look back on pictures now, like pictures that other people have taken of me. Like, my son would take some pictures of me, and I would look at him and go, oh, that's an awful picture. And I would look at it for half a second, and then I would move on. But, like, we went on vacation in February. We went on a cruise, and, of course, other people took pictures in that time frame. And I didn't really look at those pictures up until very, very recently. And I was like, wow, that's me. But I never saw myself like that. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that this is actually something that I have been dealing with a lot longer than when I truly became obese. When my son was 2, so about 11 years ago, I got down to around 160, and I didn't do it the healthy way. I totally, like, just didn't eat and over-exercised, and, I'm pretty sure that I helped burn out my metabolism when I did that. But at the time, even when I saw pictures of myself, or when I saw myself in the mirror, just anything like that, I saw an obese person. When I was in high school, me and a friend of mine weighed ourselves against each other one day, just out of curiosity. She stepped on the scale, I stepped on the scale, And we weighed the same, and I want to say it was like 120 or something like that. And I remember looking at that number and looking at her, and it was like the exact same, within like a pound, and thinking, she's really skinny, and I'm really not. Like, there's something wrong with her scale. I didn't believe the number. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm 120. And going back further than that, even as a child, and I was not a fat kid. I had no weight issues as a child, not even in like my teen years. And I started kind of piling it on a little bit towards my late teens. But even then, I was probably never over 160. But I always felt bigger than what I was. And I don't want to go, oh, woe is me, I had this terrible person in my life. But I did have one adult male in my life, which was my stepfather, who was a complete, just think bad words. And he used to constantly pick at my weight. Like, I was 7, 8, 9, not a big kid. I was skinny. Like, I even saw some home videos the other day, and I said to my mom, I wasn't a big kid. Because I couldn't really remember, like, well, maybe I was bigger than I thought I was. No, I wasn't. I was on the skinny side. But he used to do things like sing Cheeseburgers at Paradise at me, and he'd do it in front of my friends. And pick at the food that I was eating, and he was hypercritical of me gaining weight. And thank God my mom divorced him. She didn't know he was that type of person, but he ended up getting into alcohol, and he became a different person, and he became kind of hateful. And so that stuck with me. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh my God, I had such a rough childhood. I didn't really. I had a pretty damn good childhood. It wasn't perfect. Nobody's is. But it's amazing how these hurtful things can stay with you when they come from people that you love. And I'm thinking, backwards and forwards through the timeline of my life. And I don't think that I've ever had a healthy perception of what I actually look like. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm sure many of you can relate to this. I know not every obese person has this type of, I guess, distorted view of themselves, but I definitely do, and I definitely have. And I didn't even realize it. That's the crazy part. And so when I was going through the psychological evaluation, I have a history of depression and anxiety. And, I was very upfront with the psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever she was, the one that did the psychological evaluation. And she said, she was like, I do approve you for this surgery, but I strongly advise you to seek counseling after the surgery. And I was like, okay, that's probably a good idea. I agree with that. I've kind of been waiting for myself to feel better and to make that appointment. But I started thinking about it really, like, within the past couple days, and I'm like, yeah, that's something that I need to bring up. And I have a counselor that I've been seeing for off and on for years. Like, if I felt like I needed to kind of get some help dealing with something, then I would go see him and we would talk. And he's a great counselor. I really like him. And so I'm like, yeah, I need to go ahead and make an appointment with him and, maybe learn some ways to cope with the unrealistic view of how I see myself or how I have seen myself, and just coping mechanisms, all those buzzwords. But so my point of bringing that up is if you feel like maybe that's something that you have dealt with as far as not having a realistic view of your body and you're not quite sure how to deal with it. Try counseling. Really, seriously. Find a good counselor. If you have to go through 1, 2, 6, 10 counselors until you find the right one. And let me tell you, I've probably over my lifetime been through more than 5. I know that. Until I hit on one that really worked for me. But find someone that you trust, talk to them about it, and learn ways to deal with it. Which is what I'm going to do. And I hope that you do, because you deserve to find every scrap of happiness that you can after going through this journey. And I believe that I deserve that too. So, yeah, that's my pep talk for today, guys. I'm trying to keep it light, even though I know this is a very sensitive and deep issue. But just know that I believe that I can deal with it, and then I believe that you can deal with it too, with the proper tools. And that's all that I have for you today. I would really, really love to hear your feedback if this is something that you have dealt with, or just in general, you know, as far as your journey has been so far with weight loss surgery. So leave some comments below, and I'm going to do the typical YouTuber thing, like and subscribe. All right. Have a good day. Love y'all. Bye.